Minister, you can make your speech.
Mr. Assistant Speaker, allow me to start by thanking you for giving me the opportunity to present to this House the development of a policy on culture. Before I elaborate on this policy on culture, let me take this time to thank the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Honorable James Marape, for retaining me as the Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture under the Marape-Rosso government in the 11th Parliament. Let me also thank the National Executive Council and the government to endorse the National Cultural Policy 2022 to 2032 in the 10th Parliament. Prime Minister, thank you once again for officiating the official launching of the National Cultural Policy 2022 to 2032 on the 9th of June 2022 at APEC House. Mr. Acting Speaker, as honorable members may recall, not so long ago, I delivered a similar ministerial statement for the Tourism Promotion Authority in the last Parliament. But this time, my presentation is on the achievement of another important government agency under my ministry. That agency is the National Cultural Commission. Mr. Acting Speaker, the policy being presented to Parliament today is the National Cultural Policy 2022 to 2032, which has been approved and endorsed by the National Executive Council. It is a remarkable achievement for my ministry and the National Cultural Commission. It is a homegrown policy, and certainly one that was developed without engaging expensive consultants. I can confirm to the House that this policy is the first of its kind for the cultural sector since Papua New Guinea attained independence, and also first ever cultural policy in the Pacific region, including Australia and New Zealand. Mr. Acting Speaker, I am very privileged to have been associated with the development of this policy. When I was appointed the Minister for Tourism, Art and Culture in December 2020, it soon became apparent to me from the briefings that new policy on culture exists. NOGAT. The net result of this policy vacuum have seen, one, policy and legal inconsistencies affecting enforcement and monitoring of cultural properties. Two, collaboration and coordination between cultural agencies and stakeholders lacking and needing improvement. Third, unclear demarcation of roles and responsibilities of cultural institutions. Fourth, lack of attention in long-term government development plans on culture. Five, absence of sector policy on culture. Six, ad hoc approach to cultural services delivery. And seven, lack of funding and capacity building issues. Mr. Acting Speaker, this cultural policy addresses failures of the past governments. The protecting, safeguarding, developing, and promoting of our cultural heritage is a constitutional mandate. But these have taken a backseat over the years. Nevertheless, the policy addresses some perennial issues which have hindered the growth of the cultural sector. The main ones are: one, successive governments since independence have failed to develop a cultural policy for Papua New Guinea. Thus, this policy is the first of its kind under the Marape Rosso government. Second, no prominence was given to the cultural sector in the main government plans, with the Medium-Term Development Plan and PNG Vision 2050, resulting with development of arts and culture lacking behind other sectors. Third, insufficient funding allocations in annual budgets have hampered cultural services delivery and capacity development. Five, failure to recognize the important role that art and culture play in the economy of the country, contributing to economic growth, employment creation, and eradication of poverty. Five, failure to recognize in policy that our cultures are the main tourism products that needs government intervention. And six, failure to encourage development of provincial cultural development plans. In short, Mr. Assistant Speaker, our cultural heritage, which is the backbone of this nation, receives far less priority in our development plans. For instance, Pillar 6 in the Papua New Guinea Vision 2050 paid scant attention to culture, and nothing constructive is shown to either the Medium-Term Development Plan 3 or Papua New Guinea Development Strategic Plan 2010 to 2030. This is a far cry from what the Constitution has been urging us to do, particularly Goal 5 of the National Goals and Directive Principles advocates that our development should take place primarily through the use of Papua New Guinea forms of social, political, and economic organization, and cultural, commercial, and ethnic diversity of our people is a positive strength. And for the fostering of a respect for and appreciation of traditional ways of life and culture, including language in all their richness and variety, as well as for a willingness to apply these ways dynamically and creatively for the task of development. Mr. Acting Speaker, I must emphatically declare before this House that we have failed in realizing the huge potential that our cultural heritage offers in the development aspirations of our nation. We cannot go begging after others to do things for us, but must muster the necessary resources and the courage to address development agendas in our cultural plans. We as members of Parliament, the government, and equally our people, and the cultural institutions and stakeholders must work together to show that we care about the survival and transmission of our culture and traditions. This cultural policy offers us the opportunity to do just that. Let me reiterate that the National Cultural Policy is about giving prominence to culture. Towards this end, the intent and the scope of this policy is threefold. First, it attempts to identify and set a stage to give prominence with increased recognition and continue to support for and by the government in order to build a sustainable future for an active and thriving cultural and creative industry. The richness and diversity of our culture can be the stepping stone for a growing tourism industry when culture and arts are performed, exhibited, and marketed. Second, the policy attempts to identify the many challenges of protecting, safeguarding, preserving, developing, and promoting Papua New Guinea's art and cultures through updated cultural laws, better storage and retrieval systems, through education and literature, and by way of public awareness. It highlights the governance and ongoing administrative issues and management setbacks, which have been major impediments to the development of our art and culture. Third, the policy provides a clear strategy for the government and stakeholders to implement in order to accomplish the objectives and outcome that are set out in this document. Mr. Acting Speaker, Papua New Guinea has been undergoing significant change and transformation since early contact with outsiders. Over the years, the impact on our cultures and traditional social systems have been massive. We have embraced ideas, education, religion, entertainment, and technology, etc. In the aftermath of the country modernizing and interacting with the wider world, but these have come with dire consequences to our indigenous people and societies. Changes are inevitable, but we as a nation, on one hand, must rise up as one to ensure the protection and preservation of our cultural heritage, which was unselfishly passed down to us by our ancestors, and on the other, develop and promote this heritage to benefit us. We have our duty to ensure that this heritage survives to the future generations with equal intervention measures. In a nutshell, Mr. Acting Speaker, this is what this policy is all about, providing guidance for government in some vital areas of cultural service delivery and development. Mr. Acting Speaker, the overall policy framework is set out to achieve the following aims. 1, provide linkage between culture and development plans. 2, provide a common platform for all cultural development players to interact. 3, align legislation, policy, and plan for effective delivery of cultural services which currently are disjoined. 4, provide strategies for stakeholders' active involvement. 5, establish strong working relationship with subnational governments and administrations. 6, ensure critical enablers play their role in delivery of cultural services. And 7, provide a framework for economic growth in the cultural and creative industries. In order to achieve these aims, the cultural policy focuses on 4 outcome areas. These are 1, production and performance of art and culture. 2, promotion and marketing of arts and culture. 3, safeguarding and transmission of arts and culture. And 4, governance and capacity building of cultural institutions. Mr. Acting Speaker, the main thrust under the first policy outcome is to create interest amongst the people of this nation regarding their culture. It encourages people to continue practicing their culture, holding festivals, and exhibiting their specific cultural products. The second policy outcome area concerns the development of cultural and creative industries in Papua New Guinea by applying the government's agenda of developing the micro, small, and medium enterprises sector. This policy area addresses how best Papua New Guinea's art and culture can be promoted and marketed using the nation's massive media and by creating specific market spaces for the sale of our diverse cultural products. Third, the third policy outcome area is designed to ensure the protection of our tangible and intangible cultural heritage and the collection, storage, and retrieving of cultural information. The fourth policy outcome area is proposed to ensure that governance and institutional mechanisms are improved and that institutional capacities in areas of infrastructure, human resource, and financing are strengthened in order to make a delivery of cultural services more efficient, productive, and effective. Mr. Acting Speaker, the nation stands to benefit from this cultural policy. However, we know also that very little gain is made when we focus only for the sake of protecting and safeguarding. Therefore, it is imperative we also permit access to utilize this cultural heritage for economic growth in the cultural and creative industries, as alluded in the first two policy outcome areas mentioned. Simply, our culture are a valuable asset, a sustainable resource, available to every Papua New Guinean, to every member of the community to participate and enjoy the benefits thereof. On this point, Mr. Acting Speaker, let me remind all of us in this House that our diverse cultures and arts are tourism products, attracting over half of the visitors to our shows. Globally, the cultural tourism market, according to the recent World Bank report, is valued at US $453 billion. $453 billion net worth, global, tourism based on culture, which Papua New Guinea can tap into with vigorous promotion and marketing strategies in order to attract foreign tourists. This huge monetary figure alone illustrates the importance of culture and its contribution to the national economy. Papua New Guinea is diverse, very rich in culture. We have that potential. We in this nation have many such diverse cultural attractions that can bring in tourist money. We speak 1/3 of the world's total languages. 1/3 of the world's total language spoken in Papua New Guinea, which is indicative of the diversity of many cultures around us. Yet, we are way behind others as a major tourism destination. Why that is so is because there are fundamental issues that need addressing by the government and everyone else. The national cultural policy is result-driven with clear sector priorities and development plans. It is the intent of the policy to offer clear directions in planning and prioritizing cultural service delivery and development in the country. Equally, we want culture to be realized for its value and worth towards communities and its contributions towards nation building. Our goal for this policy is clear. That is, making culture the foundation for economic development because of its sustainable attributes and ever-present characteristics in all communities for sharing and enjoyment. Sustainable, endures, perpetuates, and will continue to exist in this country. Mr. Acting Speaker, policies are worthless if government fail to implement them. Hence, the government's intervention, especially the allocating of funds to carry out the programs and activities over the next 10 years is crucial. Funding this policy will cost $20 million per year, or $200 million over 10 years. Over the years, the cultural sector received negligible attention as shown by a lack of funding commitment. In fact, annual budget allocation to cultural institutions has always remained below 1% of the country's GDP, compared with that of other sectors. Mr. Acting Speaker, don't you think this House today should agree to give prominence to culture by increasing funding to the cultural sector? Certainly, $200 million over 10 years should not be too cumbersome for the nation. In summary, I emphasize again the importance of our cultures and traditions The onus is on each and every one of us in this House to provide leadership that is seen to promote our rich cultural heritage and ensure this heritage is preserved and has a sustainable future. It is time we give our utmost priority to the cultural sector. We can do so by recognizing the importance of culture in our lives and the communities by implementing this policy. Mr. Acting Speaker, let me speak a little on the National Cultural Commission, as I have learned that this important cultural agency was once run down and headed for its demise. That is old history now, so to speak. We can be assured today that National Cultural Commission's problems are over, as it has, under new management, picked itself up and worked tirelessly, restoring pride, trust, credibility, and excellence back to its administration and work over the last 3 years. This House can be assured that National Cultural Commission is in now capable hands with a better outlook for the future under the current management regime. Such is the National Cultural Commission's positive progress over the 3 years that the Department of Personnel Management recognized its achievement in awarding to its inaugural Best Performing Agency Head Award in January 2022. Over the 3 years, the National Cultural Commission has been associated with the delivering 77 cultural shows and festivals in the provinces. Its effort to even reach remote areas and working with local communities promoting shows has become a catalyst for development. And likewise, in some remote places, National Cultural Commission's presence brings together communities which have been separated by hostilities. Mr. Acting Speaker, in order for the policy to receive some measures of success in its implementation, the National Cultural Commission is aware of the important collaborative role of critical enablers, already conveniently covered by the National Cultural Policy. One missing link that should be providing critical interface between various stakeholders is an advisory body that advises the minister. Hence, my ministry will work with the government to establish a cultural advisory council, which will function to provide advice to the government and stakeholders on matters affecting art and culture in Papua New Guinea. Mr. Acting Speaker, such is the importance of critical enablers that the National Cultural Commission is seriously taking the necessary step to partner with provincial governments as the key drivers of this policy at the provincial level. Our provincial governments are responsible for cultural development in their respective provinces, linking with the local level governments, DDAs, and the local communities. After all, our local communities are the source of our cultural traditions, and therefore, culture should be promoted at their level to attract visitors and participation, and importantly, ensuring these traditions are safeguarded and preserved through the various modes of cultural expression and transmission. With this policy, Mr. Acting Speaker, the National Cultural Commission will be working with provinces to revive and develop provincial cultural centers, and it will ensure that each province has a provincial cultural development plan. At around the time of Papua New Guinea's independence and soon after, several cultural centers were operating in provinces. Except for Anga Cultural Center, the Takeanda, that was started in 1974 and which has survived to this day with responsible management and very modern facilities. Most others have ceased to exist. Such is the importance of promoting our cultures in the provinces that the government will invest in money in cultural development programs and activities there. Mr. Acting Speaker, the National Cultural Commission for the purpose of engaging the provinces, has started signing MOUs with them. To date, the National Cultural Commission has signed MOUs with 3 provinces for the delivery of cultural services, and taking this opportunity, I wish to acknowledge and congratulate the Central Provincial Government, the Milne Bay Provincial Government, Anga Provincial Government, Medan Provincial Government, and West New Britain Provincial Government for recognizing the importance of partnership towards cultural service delivery and taking the path for cultural development in their respective provinces. Other provinces are encouraged to follow the initiative taken by the 5 esteemed provincial governments and engage with the National Cultural Commission for productive collaborations. Mr. Acting Speaker, I can confidently assure Parliament that the development of this cultural policy met all the prerequisite processes of policy development, from background research to institutional problem analysis. The National Cultural Commission's policy team has held provincial and regional consultations. Moreover, the policy was peer-reviewed by a number of reputable local and international experts before being endorsed by the National Cultural Commission Board and presented for stakeholder validation. On Wednesday, the 28th of April 2022, the cultural policy was approved and endorsed by the National Executive Council after vetting by the Central Agencies Coordinating Committee. Mr. Acting Speaker, as Minister responsible, I am glad that the cultural policy has finally been developed under my watch. It is another one of the many positive achievements of the Mara Barroso government. It is therefore only proper that I take this opportunity thanking the Prime Minister for having the confidence in me. I wish to also acknowledge the leadership of Mr. Stephen Anom Kilanda, the Executive Director of the National Cultural Commission, whose resolute persistence made sure that the policy team at the National Cultural Commission delivers the policy. It took close to 2 years for the development of this document. Congratulations to all involved, and thank you to all stakeholders who have contributed. Mr. Speaker, I will end by reaffirming that Mara Barroso government fully supports the development of this policy and has guaranteed that government funding will be made available for its implementation over the 10-year period. This cultural policy highlights the exceptional achievement that is what reported in the People's House. Mr. Speaker, Acting Speaker, before me finish, let me conclude by saying this. On Tuesday, I went and officiated the opening of a cultural festival held at Abao. There, more than 7 tribes of people gathered to celebrate their culture, from children up to the elderly folks. Nothing else but their culture, their song, their dance, their chants, and their way of life. There is hope. We still have our culture. There is hope. This policy will drive that culture, monetize that culture, and realize its economic potential. Let's embrace it. Use our culture as one of the pillars for economic development in this country. And our people and this country will benefit. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.